Okay, so when we do this, just like yesterday, we have to make sure everything's in descending order, and we have to make sure we have all of our possible powers, meaning whatever the highest power is, that we have an x to the lower power, including my constant terms. Synthetic division only works nicely if you are dividing by a binomial, that's two terms, and specifically that binomial would have no number in front of x. Okay, if you put a number in front of x, it gets a little confusing, and there are extra steps that you have to do. So like if that had been a 2x minus 3 or a 4x minus 3, I would not choose to do synthetic division. I would choose to do long division because it's easier that way. Okay, so that's the first thing you want to look for, is just make sure whatever you're dividing by, that there's only 1 in front of x and not any other number. So then what we're going to do is we're going to start here, and I want to figure out what makes that bottom part turn to 0. If I take x minus 3 and I set it equal to 0, I'm going to come do that up here, x minus 3, and I set it equal to 0, how would I solve that for x? Add 3. Okay, so what we're doing is we're finding out what value does x equal for that denominator. What we're going to do is we're going to take that number, whatever we solved for x, and we're going to put it in like a backwards L or a half a box or whatever you want to call it, okay? Then instead of using the entire polynomial with all the variables, 6x to the third minus 19x squared plus x plus 6, we're only going to use the coefficients. Does everybody know what a coefficient is? Those are the numbers in front of our variables. So we're going to start with our highest degree. What is the coefficient of our x to the third? 6. Okay, so we're going to write a 6. Then we're going to look at the coefficient of our x squared. What's in front of x squared? Negative 19. Then what's in front of our x? 1. And then our constant term is 6. Okay, so again, we're just using the coefficients. What we're dividing by, we set it equal to 0 so that we can figure out what is x, what the value of x is for that. And then again, we're just using our coefficients. Is everybody okay where all those numbers came from? Okay, now you're going to skip a line below that. So you want to be able to write numbers right below that, and I'm going to draw my little like equal bar. Again, I need to be able to write numbers above that, so make sure you leave a little bit of space there. Yeah, because you're going to have to put numbers right above the line and below the line. Is everybody ready? Okay. We start by bringing down the first term, okay? I'm just going to bring it straight down. Okay, so then what we do is we take the 3 that's in our little half of a box and we multiply it by 16. What is 3 times 16? 18, and that 18 is going to go under the negative 19. Ready? Okay. Then we just add negative 19 plus 18. That's negative 1, right? Then we repeat the process. We take the 3 that's in our box and we multiply it now by negative 1. What's 3 times negative 1? Negative 3, and that's going to go under the 1. No, I haven't seen anything. Is there a jacket in there? Like a black jacket? No. Sorry. Everybody good with that? Then we add again. What is 1 plus negative 3? Negative 2. Okay. Then we repeat the process. We take the 3 and we multiply it by negative 2. What's 3 times negative 2? Okay, that goes under the 6. This last part, I always put a little line because that last part is going to be my remainder. What is 6 plus negative 6? 0, okay, which means I don't have a remainder for this question. Everybody good so far? Okay. Now I want you to watch our synthetic division. What number do I have first? What number do I have second? What number do I have third? Okay. So what we do is once we do the synthetic division without all of the variables, we're going to put those back in. And here's how you do it. What is the highest degree that I started with? X to the third. Okay, so if I have X to the third and I divide by an X, it's going to be the variable that is one lower than that. So the 6, this 6 right here would be 6x squared. How do I know that? Because I started with an X to the third. I divided by one X, so it takes me down to an X squared. Does that make sense? Okay, and then below an X squared would be an X to the first, right? So that's going to be a negative 1x. You can put the 1 there if you want to. The last number will be our constant term. And again, we did not have a remainder, so that is my answer. We're just dividing it without all of the variables. We use the coefficients. It's multiply, put it here, add. Multiply, put it the next one, add. Multiply, add, multiply, add. That's all you're doing. Once you are done, you take these coefficients. Whoops, didn't mean to do that. Take these coefficients here, starting with 1 less than where you began, and go until you don't have any more x's. Does that kind of make sense? Okay. Let's try another one. We'll try 2, and then I'll let you try 3 by yourself. Take a minute, write it down. Yep, that first term always goes down. Okay. First thing I want you to do once you get it written down is take that bottom piece, what we're dividing by, set it equal to 0, and solve it for x. That tells us what little number goes in our box. I'm going to call it a box, even though it's not really a box. All right, again, we are going to start with that bottom piece, the x plus 2. I'm going to set it equal to 0, and I'm going to solve it for x. Whatever x is equal to is what goes in our box. So in this case, it's a negative 2. Very good. All right, if I start with an x to the 4th, we have to have a position for everything below that. What is the coefficient for my x to the 4th? 1. What is the coefficient for the x to the 3rd? Negative 2. What about my x squared? There isn't one. So if there is no x squared, what would the coefficient have to be? 0. Okay, so we have to put in that 0. If you don't put in the 0, it is going to cause you to miss the problem. Okay, so you have to pay attention to your highest degree and make sure you have a coefficient for every one below that. What's the coefficient for my x to the 1st? 13. And then what's my constant term? Negative 6. Okay, leave your space, draw your line. Is everybody good with where the 0 came from? Okay. So we started with x to the 4th. We had 1x to the 4th, so that's where the 1 came from. Then it was a negative 2x to the 3rd. Okay, but I don't have an x squared, so I have to put in that placeholder, kind of like we did yesterday when we were missing 1. We have to put in a placeholder. 0 times something makes it disappear. So since there is no x squared, we put a 0. And then the 13 comes from in front of the x, and then the negative 6. Yeah. Is everybody ready? First term always comes straight down. We don't change the first one. And then we begin the process. Negative 2 times 1 is negative 2, right? Okay. Add What's negative 2 plus negative 2? Negative 4. Then we're going to multiply again. Negative 2 times negative 4 gives me 8. Then we add. What's 0 plus 8? Okay. We're going to multiply again. Negative 2 times 8 is, if I could write, maybe. Come on. Negative 16 is what I'm trying to write here. What's 13 plus negative 16 going to give me? Negative 3. And then we're going to multiply one more time. What's positive 2 times, negative 2 times negative 3? Positive 6. And then if I add, that remainder is going to be what again? 0. Okay. It's not always 0, but that last number will always be your remainder. Multiply, add, multiply, add. You multiply by the number below the line with the number in the box. Okay. And then you put it under the next number. Then you add the two numbers above the line and put it below. And then you repeat, multiply, add. Makes sense? All right. Now we've got to figure out how to write our answer. What was my highest degree in my dividend, what I started with? X to the 4th. So when I write my answer, this 1 is going to be in front of a 1x to the 3rd. Okay, 1 less than x to the 4th. Which means the negative 4 would be in front of an x squared. Which means the positive 8 would be in front of an x. And then that negative 3 would just be my constant term. And since I don't have a remainder, I don't have to write plus the remainder over the divisor. Make a little bit of sense. Sort of, somewhat. Okay. Once you get the hang of it, this is much easier than long division. I promise. I want you to go ahead and start working on setting up number 3. Be careful, because what are we missing again? X squared. So again, I'm going to start with that bottom part. The x minus 2 equals 0. I'm going to solve it. So 2 goes in my box. It's 1x to the 4th minus 2x to the 3rd. I don't have x squared, so I put in a 0. Minus 2x plus 1. Is everybody good with that? All right. First term always comes straight down. It doesn't change. Then we begin the process. Multiply, put it under the next number. Add, and then start over. What's 2 times 1? 2. What's negative 2 plus 2? Okay, then we're going to start over again. The 2 in my box times the 0 below the line is 0, and that's going to go under the next number. Then I add. 0 plus 0 is 0. And then I repeat. The 2 in my box times the second 0 is another 0. Then I add. Negative 2 plus 0 is, okay. Then I multiply. 2 times negative 2 is negative 4. And then I add, which gives me, remember, that is your remainder, whatever that last number is. If it helps you, before you start writing your final answer, look at your highest degree. Know that this one is going to be 1 less than that. And then you can just go in descending order from there. Maybe just kind of jot it right next to it before you write your final answer. So it's going to be 1x to the 3rd. I don't have x squareds. I don't have x's. I just have a constant 2. I'm sorry, negative 2. Plus my remainder. And remember, that goes over what we divided by, the entire x minus 2. And that is how we would leave an answer with the remainder. It's all coefficients, multiplying and adding. Just don't forget to put in zeros if you're missing a position. But you can get to doing this in like probably 20, 30 seconds rather than 3 or 4 minutes, right? So it's much easier, quicker, faster, better. All right, try 4. Again, negative 1, and then we get that from just solving for the divisor. And then I have a 1x to the 4th, a negative 1x to the 3rd. What about my x squareds? That is 0. And then a negative 2x and a positive 2. Remember, first number always comes down, and then we multiply. Negative 1 times 1 is 1. We add. We multiply. We add. We multiply. Whoops, that's not what that is. Oh, it is, isn't it? We add. We multiply. We add. Does that look like the numbers you guys got? Okay. I started with x to the 4th, so when I write my answer, this first one is going to be in front of x to the 3rd. Okay, again, if it helps you to write them next to it before you write your final answer, that will be okay. Negative 2x squared, a positive 2x, a negative 4, plus my remainder over my divisor. Everybody kind of okay with that? I'm not sure which one you're talking about. Go ahead and set up 5. This will be the last one. You're missing a couple of terms here. You finish your homework? That's tonight. Okay, so this one comes from multiplying these two.
Bring down
So this time it goes above the line. And then you add, and then you repeat. Multiply these two, they go above the line. Does that make sense? How many spots are we missing in this one? How many zeros should we fill in? 2 of them. So make sure you get those zeros filled in for every spot you're missing. That's a 1. It's only a 0 if it's not there. Okay, yeah, so you're missing x to the 4th, which is where that 0 is. These two should be solved. Or actually, that your x to the 3rd is negative 2, so that should be there. So this is your, for that one, for that position, yes. So that's your x to the 5th, right? We don't have x to the 4th, so that's why that's there. And then your x to the 3rd would be negative 2, and then your x squared is 1. And then you don't have an x, so you need to put 0. Does that make sense? You're looking at the first one. Multiply this, both of those, put them below. All right, here we go. What goes in my box? Okay, -2. I have a 3x to the 5th. How many x to the 4th do I have? 0. What's in front of x to the 3rd? What's in front of x squared? What's in front of x? And then my constant is? Okay. So you have to make sure those zeros go in those specific positions. Then again, first number comes down, and we start the process. We multiply. -2 times 3 is -6. We add. We multiply. -2 times -6 is 12. We add. We multiply. We add. We multiply. We add. -76. Is that right? And then if I add those, that's going to give me a -83. Okay, that's fine. You can have a big remainder or a small remainder. Just remember that last number is our remainder. And then to set up my answer, what's my first x one? It's going to be x to the 4th. So x to the 3rd, x squared, x, and a constant. So we get 3x to the 4th minus 6x to the 3rd plus 10x squared minus 19x plus 38, and then plus my remainder over my divisor of x plus 2. So that one's kind of a long answer there, right? But it's not bad. Much better than the long division.